back to another episode of the Startup Junkies podcast. I'm Grace Gill, and here with me today are co-hosts Claudia Scott and Harrison Kitson. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited to be here.
Fantastic, thank you.
Thank you both for being on. And then, of course, we have our lovely guest today, Brittnie Simon with Collab. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here.
Good. So usually we kind of start off the podcast with the origin story, so you can kind of decide where that's at. But how would you give us your background and where you started?
Origin story. That sounds way cooler than it actually is.
I know.
I'm originally from Houston. I moved up to Arkansas in 2011 to go to the U of A. So I'm an alum there. Woo Pig Suey, I guess. And I graduated with 2 degrees in 4 years, so I was really one of those people that just wanted to get through it. I got a degree in advertising public relations and art with an emphasis of graphic design and photography. Yeah, I always knew I was going to do creative services in some way, and I wanted to get to the point where I was high enough where I wasn't doing graphic design all the time.
Yeah.
But I still could be
Well,
creative.
that gives you like a good, just global knowledge of a lot of things.
Yeah, and it was really fun in school to have that variety of like economics class and then going into a 3-hour art studio and like getting to be expressive. So like for me as a creative, I never took I didn't take a first art class until college. So like I did a lot of computer-based classes in high school. So like I learned a little bit of web design. So for the people that know web design, I designed a website in Flash, which is really, really outdated today. And Dreamweaver and Fireworks, those programs are gone, essentially. So I've been playing in that realm for a really long time. When I graduated, I struggled. I didn't have like the traditional graduate, have a job lined up situation. So I thought I did. So I graduated with a position at a small firm here in Northwest Arkansas because I had fallen in love with a boy and was like, I'm going to stay. Luckily, I'm still with that boy, so it worked out.
That's good. To me.
Yeah. We're celebrating 10 years. So, like, luckily, that whole thing.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that whole thing worked in my favor.
That's a long time. That's a great milestone.
Yeah, and so I took a job right out of school, was really excited, and when I went in for like orientation, the owner told me I was going to be 1099, and when I didn't know what that meant, and so I left my orientation and called my grandfather. I was like, so this is what this guy said to me. He said I'm 1099, and he was like, okay, you got to leave that job, because what I had accepted in salary after taking a 1099 job, I wasn't going to be able to pay my bills. So I like called the guy and I was like, hey, like I'm going to need a little more money. And he was like, I can't give you more money. And I was like, well, I can't work for you now. And so I quit without even starting my first day and was like, well, crap, we've rented a house here. Like I had planned to be here. What do I do? And it turns out that I worked a lot of jobs. So I was a hostess at Crystal Bridges for a while. I freelanced for the Artist Evolution. And I also worked as an intern at Launch Marketing. So I was working a total of 80 hours a week at that time with the 3 jobs, trying to like juggle everything and pay bills and all of that. Poor John. Good job for surviving that. But after my internship came to an end, they kept it open for college students. So with the fact that they didn't have like a full-time position open, they let me go. And that was the first time that I had experienced being let go from a job, because normally I left because I was moving to college or whatever. And I'm one of those people that, like, when you work till the end of the day and you go home and that's it. So when I got there that morning, they brought me in there like, all right, Brittnie, we're going to pay you through the end of the week, but we're not going to have you stay any longer. So I went back to my desk and started working, thinking, okay, they're paying me to the end of the week. I'm going to finish the week. And someone came by and was like, Brittnie, you're supposed to go home. And I was like, wait, what? I was like, what the heck? Really? So I like packed up my little box and like walked out and like felt really uncomfortable because that was the first time that like I was told to leave a building. And luckily I still had my job at Crystal Bridges and started looking for full time. My first full career-based job was for a supplier. And I was going to be the 3rd man on staff there. And it was supposed to be like product photography, package design, and things like that. I was really excited. And that was another hard lesson because the business owner and I couldn't communicate well, but it turned out his communication style was to get loud, shout, cuss, and make me cry. And so as a fresh out of school, trying to keep your job, I was afraid to leave and not be hireable. But what I learned in that moment was that, like, just because I wasn't a good fit there didn't mean I wouldn't be a good fit somewhere else. And it came to the point where he was aggressive in the workplace, and I had to write an email saying, like, I won't go back. And I was devastated because I thought, like, I had made my way into the industry at that point. And I had just left Crystal Bridges, so I went back to Crystal Bridges that next day and met with my boss. I was like, hey, I might need my job back. And thankfully, she was like, take a week. She told me to, like, hold off, take a week, and then come back and see me because I was just disheveled. I was like, I got to pay bills. And turns out that week is what I needed to reset. I met with one of the regulars at the restaurant. They invited me to brunch because they saw me there that day. And they recommended me writing a broadcast letter. Do you guys know what that is?
Only because you had told me what it was.
Yeah. So it's a really old book, and they gave me the book to take home. And I can't remember the title, of course, but it's about how when you write the letter to, you're supposed to, instead of sending in a resume or writing an email, you write a letter to a C-level exec, pretty much saying, hey, this is who I am, this is what I can do, but I'm interested in learning more about your company. This is what I know about it. Are you willing to sit down and talk to me and tell me more so I can see if I might be a good fit or interested in being part of your culture? And I thought that was really interesting because up to this point, everything has been like, please give me an opportunity, please read my resume, and it was just a different approach. And after going into a business where I didn't fit, I was like, I really want to find one that I'm going to fit in. So I wrote 18 different letters.
Wow.
And I hand lettered the envelopes, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to bribe these people to open them. So I'm going to get cookies. And hopefully they'll see the cookies. They'll be like, I should open these letters. I chose National Chocolate Chip Cookie Day to go buy cookies from Rick's Bakery. I don't recommend. The line was out the door and around the corner. So that was an awesome start to that morning. Then I ended up at my first place, and they were working remote that day. So, like, off to a rough start. And I'm a naturally anxious person, so my anxiety was building constantly through that day. And I went to my first place, and it was New Creature, which is no longer around today. But I went in and malfunctioned, essentially giving the letters and cookies to people. I was trying to communicate, and my anxiety was so high that it was just like, here's my letters, take it, please. And walked down and was like, oh my gosh, that was a hot mess. Turns out that the CEO texted me within 2 minutes of me leaving the building to come back and talk with him. He made me sit in the lobby for 30 minutes, which was super stressful because I'm like, I had no resume on me. I looked nice, but otherwise I had a box full of cookies and envelopes. So I'm sitting there anxious. I'm like, man, he's going to yell at me. I messed up their day. Like, what the heck am I supposed to do? And he pulled me in and he talked to me for a while, asked me what I wanted, and I said that I wanted to, like, work somewhere and prove that I had the skill set necessary to succeed. And he ended up giving me 30 days to work there to prove that I was what I was saying I was. And I was pumped. I was like, yeah, I'm going to pay my bills for the next 30 days. Heck yeah. And he asked me how much I wanted. And I was thinking about what I would have gotten at Crystal Bridges, which was $9.11 at the time, $9.11. So I was like, I want $18. I was confident. I went in hard confidence on that number. And he looked at me and goes, you're going to be $10.99, right? And that means you lose about 50% to taxes once you get paid. So, like, that 18 now is 9.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm going to pay you $40 an hour for the next 30 days to show me that you're worth what you think you are. And I was like, man, this is awesome. This is the best thing ever. And I was on my high horse because I was like, yeah, even if I don't, like, stay on after 30 days, I'll have a few months rent. And that was, like, key. And I ended up staying at New Creature for 2 years. New Creature specialized in corrugated displays in Walmart. What that means is that I had to learn 3D rendering in the first 30 days of being there. So I went from just having graphic design and photography skills to 3D rendering, and I worked my way up there. I started as a designer, was promoted after 6 months to senior designer, and after a year I was promoted to junior creative director. So I was like on track. And the cool thing about New Creature was their company culture. They were led by a creative, so creatives had a lot of say, which is rare in marketing industries. Normally it's a salesperson doing all of the communicating instead of having what we can design or what's actually functional in the room with you. New Creature, like I said, doesn't exist anymore, so there were some financial decisions and some HR decisions that caused the company to no longer be around, and I made it through many rounds of layoffs, top 10 if we're playing Survivor, made it to top 10. And in that time, I learned that I really liked working with small businesses. So since they were a vendor business when I first got there, as things started to fall apart, there was a group of us that started working with some of our local businesses to provide quality design for small businesses. And I just really enjoyed that. I didn't have to go through layers of approval and was getting to work directly with who I was working for. After I got let go, I was only laid off for a week, thank goodness. And I ended up at another agency in the area that they're going to be amazing. They're a super talented team. The men that run the business are super good businessmen. It just wasn't the place that I needed to succeed for me as a creative. So I struggled with doubt and just feeling stifled. So I ended up leaving and launching my own business, which was never part of my plan. If you would have asked me 2 years ago if I was going to have my own business, I would have laughed at you. And I guess it's almost over 3 years now because Collab turns 3 this year.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So then once you decided to kind of take that leap, tell us more about Collab and what you do now.
Yeah. So I come from a family of entrepreneurs. And in August of 2020, I decided to launch Collab Design Company. So we're a digital marketing agency that specializes in brand consistency across multiple platforms. What I mean when I say that is that we ensure that our clients look, sound, and feel the same, from initial brand development to helping them establish an online presence and then building a regular content strategy. What was really awesome is that when I made that leap, my grandfather had passed earlier in 2020, but in the will, there was a little grant money essentially for if I decided to start my own business. So that was the launching pad that I had, thank goodness, to get the tech that I needed. I had never sold a day in my life. All I knew is that I could design well and I was passionate about it, which led me to learning to network, learning to talk to complete strangers, which I absolutely hated at the beginning of this. But really, Collab becomes like a marketing department for small businesses. So the other thing that kind of inspired me to run towards small business and marketing for small businesses was my dad. He's been a tax accountant for a very long time, but at one point he decided he didn't want to be a tax accountant anymore and bought a bar. And you can actually watch his episode on Bar Rescue. It's called Taxed Out in Texas. That's my dad. He's really cool if you watch that episode. But through that process of owning the bar, I watched him like really struggle to find people that were as good as they said they were in terms of marketing, would provide layouts and designs that were responsive and well designed and easy to read for somebody from a distance and even towards his demographic. So taking that, watching his struggle, knowing how much I love to work with small businesses as well as at New Creature, and then having this opportunity to do that was kind of the whole thing behind Collab. And it's Collab for a reason, right? Collaborative energy, from working with clients hand in hand to the team dynamic is collaborative. It's everyone has a say, everyone has a perspective. If you want to sell, if you want to design, because with those experiences, you get to the best result possible.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's really, really cool.
That is awesome. Yeah.
You seem to be very proactive in the way you've kind of gone about your business. So you mentioned the fact you were only laid off for a week and you found a new position somewhere else. And now you're moving on to starting your own business. Do you feel like being proactive in that way has really helped you along your journey?
I think so like I said, I'm a very anxious person. So my anxiety, it's twofold. So it's a pro in my life and it's a con in my life. So in pro, it pushes me to be proactive, to not sit still and to keep pushing myself to grow. And it's a con in the sense of like it causes the self-doubt and over concern and worry that you have when you're running a business. But what really stood out to me on my journey was how many people that I was able to lean on, like connections that supported me. So I was laid off for that week, but in that week, like I made an announcement to LinkedIn and was like, hey, like my journey ended at New Creature. I'm looking for my next opportunity. And the community here in Northwest Arkansas just rallied to, hey, have you seen this? Hey, have you seen this? And the same experience I felt when I launched my business was that when I started networking and connecting in the community, people want to refer locally and they want to get to know who they're referring. They want to be that, oh, I know a guy. I know that person, or I can help you out. And building those connections really pushed me forward. And then also it's really cool to drive around and kind of see some of your designs locally. It's kind of that like, you're like, yeah, I did that.
I do. So I know you mentioned your grandfather. Like he was part of why you started it, or like after he passed. Then you mentioned your dad also being an entrepreneur. How much of that entrepreneurial spirit do you think is coming from your family and like a long
100% of it.
Okay.
100% of it. I did not have it. Well, I guess I have it because I'm running a business, but it wasn't an ambition of mine leaving school to own my own business or to run an agency. It was I wanted to be a loyal creative director at an agency. I wanted to work hard and be somewhere for a long time. And that's just me. I'm just a loyal person in terms of like dedicating time and energy to anything. A lot of our clients are retainers. So like I build long-term lasting relationships with them, get to see where they started and seen their growth. And kind of I'm part of their team without being part of their team. And that's really cool for me. But 100% of my entrepreneurial spirit is through them and their support. I wouldn't have done it if it wasn't my dad, who's like my biggest cheerleader, like on the side being like, go for it, do it, you're young, you can make mistakes. I'm like, I don't want to make mistakes. I want to succeed. He's like, but you can afford the risk. And I'm like, can I? Can my mental health?
Yeah.
That is so great. I love, and as we talk to other small business owners, I think that family support can be so either like detrimental or, can really mark the path of people while they're starting their business. So I think that's great. In the community, like you mentioned, I think Northwest Arkansas, and we see it here in so many different areas, how it's really a good supportive community. Like,
yeah, we're very lucky. Like I think about if I had gone back to Houston or ended up in Texas again, how competitive the areas would have been, and would we have the networking opportunities that are available to us through not only the chambers, but programs like Startup Junkie and things that are just constantly trying to connect people in different stages of business and educating them. I have a very low doubt that like I wouldn't be where I am today. Like you're talking, I launched in August of 2020, so very uncertain times. Within a year of that, I had gotten an office space. I hired my first employee a year later, and I just hired my third one, and spearheaded some other business ventures in terms of my office space is too much, so I sublease it. So
yeah, I think when you mention connection, I think Northwest Arkansas is so known for that interconnection in not just in the entrepreneurial ecosystem, but just like we're also important in key pieces of this large area. But it's that connection and that one-on-one that you mentioned, you didn't like going out and meeting people. And then, that is what makes or breaks a business. So
for sure.
On that too, kind of as you were talking about your journey, you mentioned in each of these places you've ran into issues with the culture. So as you're building your own company, how do you manage that culture? How do you build a culture and make sure that it's how you like it and it's an inviting place for other people who are coming into the company?
Yeah, so one thing that's been very important to me was I launched Collab in terms of trying to keep my mental health intact. So making sure that mental health and creative burnout and where you are is an open community, like open in terms of the space, and like my employees can come and tell me like, hey, I really don't want to work on this right now. I'm feeling really burnt out by doing too much social media. Can I switch? And having that variety of work to be able, or for me to step in and be like, yeah, I got it. I'll take this client. And you do this while I do this, and shifting that, because as creatives, we have so much like you have your cup and it's full of creative juices, and as you're doing things you kind of lose it, and if you don't have a pause or a way to refill it, it's the same with sales and people and things and your social battery, then you're kind of at the end of your cup and you're not doing successful work. So being able to say, hey, my cup's empty, and build that communication there, then we can pivot and help give you opportunities to refill. A great example was one of my employees. She is very anxious about networking, and it was really actually hindering her design work. So I pulled her off networking completely, put more design work on her, and I've seen her designs flourish because of it. Also, I think I was surrounded by New Creature, right? Their culture was, you lived and breathed it. It was like you were drinking the New Creature Kool-Aid, like you were just part of this, and just making sure that like that energy, that passion is digested by everyone around me is really important.
I wonder, so in Burnout, as you know, it's horrible across all stages, but I'm sure as a creative, like you mentioned, you know, I know the same happens if you're a writer. You know, you can't write anymore when you're burnt out. You can't design. You can't, you know, create things. So, and as being the owner, I'm sure that's different because you're dealing not only with your personal burnout, but all your employees. And I'm sure that sense of responsibility. So how do you deal with like not getting burned out creatively, personally?
I think it's because I'm so lucky to be like in different industries and like have hands in different categories that I'm really passionate about, that it kind of refuels my fire. In terms of like, if you look at our client base, we have mental health therapists, we have IT companies, we've got an art gallery and all these things. So like your brain is moving from thing to thing, that it allows you to kind of repivot. Also, I'm a nerd, 100% have nerdy tendencies. So like taking time to play D&D and read and escape into some of those fantasy worlds is how I refill my cup. Because those moments where I'm not thinking about marketing strategy or business is kind of the best time to like decompress.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you feel like throughout your working life you've been able to balance that as well as you do now? I know you talk about doing all the nerdy stuff you might do, as you describe it, nerdy.
Yeah.
While you're still balancing your business life. That's it. You say you have a small team, but you mention a lot of different things that you do.
Yeah.
How do you manage to balance that?
That's a great question. It's phases of business in terms of, I do feel like I have a really good ability, and I did in school too, where I was doing full 15-hour classes with 3-hour studios, still having a social life. I worked part-time and just always being able to kind of do those things, but recognizing when like it's a no people weekend, like I need to be home and I need to just be on my couch is really important. A lot of people will try to rally and like, oh, I should go people, or I need to be out, but recognizing like it's okay to be home. It's okay to decompress this weekend. Or when I first launched, you have these expectations of like getting up at 5 a.m., working out, going in, knocking out a bunch of work, getting done. And those were actually hurting me. Those like high expectations of being a high functioning person early in the morning was not who I was. So then pivoting my day to day to be like, I'm actually an 8 o'clock person. I need to get up at 6:30, get ready slowly, and get into the office at 8. And I'm actually more enjoyable and I enjoy my day more than saying I have to be at work at 7 a.m.
I love the fact that you consider 8 to be quite late, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I'm more of like a 9 a.m. kind of person.
During the school year, I'm more of a 1 p.m. kind of guy, which is definitely not the right mindset to have.
I think it's funny because I didn't think 8 was late until I started networking and working.
Yes.
Like, it's a different mind shift when you have appointments or people that are trying to squeeze you in.
Yeah.
And like meet you at 7 a.m. and you're like, absolutely not. You do not want to see me before I've had coffee, I promise.
I know.
100%. And I think too, recognizing that like I like afternoon workouts, so making sure to prioritize like I can stop at 2:30, go work out and finish my day. Nothing that we're doing at Collab is brain surgery. Like it's not life threatening if it doesn't go out at 1 p.m. Instead it goes out at 4 p.m. Like really, what we actually managing social media, and people are always active on social media.
It's very important, yeah. And I think we can get lost in that rush of like everything has to be done today. So I can't, take a break. I can't go to the gym. I can't, because we're really all just kind of lost in that rush, which leads to burnout. So I think, and that's so important to just feed into your work culture.
I think too, in terms of we're in a society that needs instant gratification. They needed it yesterday, and really they don't. It just feels like that from other pressures and outside environments. So kind of setting up expectations in terms of what are your boundaries and what are the timelines. And that's been something that isn't easy, and it's not something I just had. I've had to learn and worked many late nights trying to readjust things for that capacity, essentially.
Yeah, I think that's definitely cool considering, in your field, that creative, having that extra creative edge. It's not just crossing off the boxes, checking all the boxes, like, okay, I did my tasks. It's, you want to bring that quality of work, and so to have that creative edge, you need to take care of your mind sometimes. So that's cool.
Yeah, it's definitely something that too, like with company culture, back to that, I noticed that my employee wasn't taking time off. So I actually went and required her to pick a Friday every month to take off until I felt like she had leveled back out, because we can get into, if you like something, you'll do it, right? You'll just be in it and do it over and over again, but then it starts to hinder you. So walking away is actually better, and taking that pause and turning off your phone and things.
So what are some other challenges that you ran into in starting your own business, or even in digital marketing specifically, with how fast that's changing all the time? I mean, what are some other challenges, and how do you mitigate that when you're building this firm?
That's a really good question. So in terms of business and like on the business admin side, I think one of the biggest challenges is not taking it to bed with me, and not having because it's my business, right? I can do it all day, every day, and take it into bed and read my emails at 11 o'clock at night and stress myself out. So learning to say no, it's like I can be an employee too, and I can go and enjoy the evening and not look at emails. On the digital marketing side, it's a constant challenge, because you're kind of dealing with this mindset of marketing is a luxury when marketing should be a priority for a lot of businesses, in terms of like the first thing they invest in, brand, marketing, and building an online presence. Because when you have those pieces in place, your long-term loyal customers will start to recognize you. You'll start to build a name, and brand awareness is the key to success, and having a strong voice and message. But when economies get stressful, when you're uncertain, you pull back on marketing, and you try to take it on yourself. But as a small business, right, if you try to take marketing that you were just outsourcing back, as a business owner, it's the last thing that gets done, and it's not prioritized, and then it drops the ball, and then you wish that you hadn't ever gotten rid of the support. What I love is that we don't upsell, right? Everything we do is to meet the client where they're at. That's the biggest thing that makes small business uncomfortable about marketing agencies, is they look at something and they're like, oh, this is good, but we need to do 5, 10, 15 other things instead of the one thing that they're asking for. So we always discuss what they need and how we can help them. And then if they bring more information to the table, we'll provide that. But we try not to be too pushy and kind of meet them where they're at. And like I said, we do a lot of creative retainers. And sometimes people, those numbers are a little higher than they want them to be. So I'll say, okay, well, what is your marketing budget? Well, they don't know. So then I challenge them to find out and tell me, and then we will make a retainer custom for them in terms of that.
What's your one advice on social media marketing for small businesses?
Yeah, I think there's a misunderstanding of what consistency means. And I think that's the biggest challenge, is consistency isn't posting every day. It's, can you post weekly on a regular basis consistently, even if it's 1 or twice a week? You just determine your level of consistency and commit to it. What happens for small business owners or people in general that they're like, I'm going to start social media marketing. They try to go from 0 to 100 without actually building the routine to get to 5.
Yeah.
And they don't realize, if they've never had to create content or be creative, how quickly their 0 to 100 won't happen because they ran out at 10.
Yeah.
And kind of building that routine and learning how to follow the trends and what you're looking for and what is going to appeal to your customer. There's a lot of pieces there. So if you just go, I'm going to post every day, you're going to end up stopping after 2 weeks because you just can't.
It's too much. Yeah.
So learning to define what consistency means to you. Also, I have an oral surgeon. If you saw him posting about wisdom teeth every day, do you really think that is going to appeal to his customers? No, you have to be methodical about how often you're posting and what you're posting so that it's engaging and shareable and that people want to actually watch it. Because if you're posting wisdom teeth, people will probably unfollow him very quickly.
Where did you start off? So you said you have to start from 5 and then kind of work your way up to 100. When you were originally starting your marketing, what kind of platform did you take to first? What was your schedule? What did that kind of look like?
That's funny because we're a digital marketing agency that didn't digitally market ourselves to 2023. So, yeah. So I launched in 2020 and didn't actually take on marketing ourselves until 2023. And that's because, one, as a business owner, we eat last. We take care of our business last. So you prioritize your customers, your customer service, all ahead of you. And when it was just me, right, Collab, I was networking. That was how word was going out. When I added the second person, I was like, yeah, they're going to be able to manage all the collab stuff. I'm too close to it. It's my baby. I just want to approve it, send it out. Well, the workload was too heavy. Like, I actually needed that person to take on half of the work that I was doing. So now we're in a place where we have the third person. The workload is evenly divided, and I can start thinking about how I want to present information. And I also did a lot of researching in what our competitors were doing and how we could kind of introduce ourselves into the market differently. When I established consistency, the first step was, let's get active on stories. Let's post stories because those are in the moment. It's teaching us to take photos. It's teaching us to be present in like, oh, we should capture this or that. And then it was, let's post 2 times a week. And what does that look like? So we look at our content pillars. How often should we prioritize reels, videos, graphics? And what is our content going to be like? So for Collab, it's half educational, half humorous and quirky, and then it's project related. So showcasing and highlighting our clients because their successes are our successes. So establishing our content pillars, and then, 2 times a week, and now we're up to 3. Every other week it's 2. So it's 3, 2, 3, 2. And then I have the pattern of reel, graphic, reel, picture, reel, graphic. And then I can kind of pick the theme. So we haven't done a project in a while, so this reel needs to be project related. And that's kind of how strategy is built. And then you see what's working and not working.
I love how organized you are, by the way. I just like to point out I am one of the most unorganized people you'll ever meet. And
don't come see my office.
I'm sure mine's a lot worse. But seeing how organized you are about everything you're talking about is really, really impressive.
I'm really passionate about what I do. I really like what I do. And I think that's what allows me to kind of talk about it and seem organized is because I've done and tested and figured out what works for things and what doesn't. I think the other thing that I've learned is that social media is a long game, marketing is a long game. So trying to see return on investment 1 week after you first started posting consistency is going to dishearten you. So knowing that you're probably going to be putting effort in for about a year before you'll see those results.
That's really funny because Harrison and I have been checking the short that we posted today on Startup Junkies page every hour just to see how many more likes we've gotten. And we're not getting that great of a return yet. So
we were on 19 views after 18 minutes. I remember that precisely because I checked.
Yeah, so
it's hard. You want that success, especially if you did the research, this audio is trending, it should be successful, posted it at the right time. There's so many components to marketing and social media, especially on were people active at that time? Maybe that wasn't the best day. Maybe it wasn't the best audio, or there's so many things.
And I think we go back to instant gratification. You were checking the short every minute. Because
I loved it though. I thought it was great.
Because you wanted
go viral.
You wanted to get those comments. And mind you, I'm the same way. I posted something on Instagram and I was like, and then I would close it, and then I would do it again. And I was like, oh my God, I got one more like. So I think we do get lost a lot in that instant gratification, especially when it comes to posting on your business without realizing, and it's getting the customers used to. I've just tried to start posting more in the Kiva Facebook page. I'm like, why is no one liking my stuff? But I think, I have to realize that people have to get used to see my name and start engaging after, 6 months or a year. So
Yeah, I think there's that. And two, it's reevaluating your content. So after a quarter, looking back and saying, okay, did this work? What got the most engagement? Was it something that I did off the cuff? Was it something that used trending audio? What day did we post? There's so much. So in terms of marketing, there's so much data and analytics on the back end that people don't also use to their benefit. And there's a method to it, but it's also, we don't know for a really long time. So I think Facebook, you have to have like 100 followers minimum before you can get demographic information. So like you have to keep up until you get that 100, and then you're like, okay, well, it's 100 people. How do you apply that to a mass amount of data, like a mass group of people? You're just using a small sum. So you got to keep experimenting.
And I'm sure the first 160 of them are probably family members.
100%. 100%. My dad, I love him to death. He shares every post of collabs, but his following is like 10 people. I'm like, I love this.
Awesome.
I'm here for
Come on,
it.
Dad, you have to make different accounts.
Yeah, I'm like, come on.
I got 200 views on my school project recently, and I'm positive. Well, my dad posted it, so 60 of them are family. About 100 of them are me. And I have no idea where the other 40 or 50 are coming from.
My aunts are the only
Bots,
people,
probably.
Yeah, my aunts are the only people that will comment, like, and share my stuff. Like, if it wasn't for my very big family and every single one of my aunts, I would have 0 following.
I think that's a good thing to like point out too. So like as a young person that maybe doesn't have a big budget, like how can you support small businesses that you love? And that's just getting on, following their page, engaging with their content, commenting. Like even as a small business owner, like what can I do for other small businesses? It's making sure that I'm following them and engaging with their content, because that's a free thing that you can do that gives them more like visibility and just like puts them a little bit higher. And it's totally worth spending 30 minutes on a weekend just like making sure you kind of engage with some of your favorite pages or your favorite companies, because that just does them a world of success.
Yeah, that's a really, really great point. Is there any other questions?
No?
I guess a question that we always ask on the podcast, though this is my first episode.
I know, wow, it's taking the reins.
Well, I've watched a few. I've watched a few now. If you were to give advice to yourself when you're starting out everything as a 20-year-old, what advice would that be?
You have to go back in time.
Yeah, it would definitely be like enjoy the ride, because every little situation that I've been in, every uncomfortable, positive, happy moment has gotten me to this point, and I wouldn't change it for anything. Every experience that I've done has taught me something that I needed to bring either into like business or into my personal life or into my relationships with clients or people in general. So it's just like, as stressful it is just keep pushing and enjoy the ride, because when you look back, you're like, heck yeah, I did it. There was somebody that told me, like, you'll never do anything as hard as it was back then, right? So, like, when you're moving forward, you look back, that was easy, because now you're challenging new things. So, like, it's now you're taking on harder things, and when you look back, it was way easier. So
That's great.
That's great.
Thank you for joining us. And for our listeners, where can they engage with you and find more information on Collab? What's the best ways to get in contact?
We have a website. It's collabdesign.co. That is our handle as well. Brand consistency there. Collab Design Co. is how you find us. So.
Perfect.
Sweet. Thank you so much for coming
Thank
on,
you
Brittnie.
so much.
Thank you.
It's so good
Sweet.
talking.
Ecosystem builders, entrepreneurs, chambers of commerce, mayors. If you're interested in taking your economic future into your own hands, we've got a book that can help you. Creating Startup Junkies, Building Sustainable Venture Ecosystems in Unexpected Places is the guide. It's a little bit inspiration. It's a little bit toolkit. What it will allow you to do is take your economic future into your own hands and build a sustainable small business, innovation, and entrepreneurial ecosystem in your backyard. If you'd like to hear more, check out creatingstartupjunkies.com. The Startup Junkie podcast reaches over 100 countries and has had over 100,000 downloads. If you're interested in reaching some of the most motivated and engaged innovators and entrepreneurs on a worldwide basis, give us a shout.